All right. So today we'll be continuing from chapter one into the first way, the principles of flow. So we borrow this image from the book depicting what the first way is. It's just a straight line from the business onto the customer. And we'll be talking about that today. Our group is Michael Nishiguchi, Matias Salazar, and Rodrigo Concha. So the first thing that the book tells us about is to make our work visible. Uh, Visibility helps the flow and prioritize and reduce bottlenecks in the production environment. Basically, when you're able to see the tasks that other people have that you have coming, you're able to prioritize and say, hey, maybe I can help this other person by maybe making or finishing this job early so this other person can continue onward with the project and then finish the product in a faster manner. And businesses use tools like Jira or Trello to keep track of their workflow. Yes. Then we have an image here of the real life example from where I work at. And yeah, then the next thing that the book talks about is how we have to limit our work in the process, WIP. So basically, it says that completing ongoing tasks should take priority over taking on new requests. Basically, finish what you're doing before you take another job, and because if you start multitasking, even if it's a basic job that you're doing, you're gonna lose productivity, and that overall is gonna hurt the output that the company or your team wants. And and the examples we saw before with the post-it notes and the workflow are examples of this and this of the work progress, and they can be captured in the Kanban boards that we saw. So yeah. Then we want to reduce batch sizes. So basically, we want to finish a product as soon as possible. And if we start going the old ways, like mass production used to do, we'll run into the problem of not being able to produce as many things as soon as we could if we just focus on one little thing. So the the book is telling us that we should take focus on small tasks to reduce the lead time. The lead time being the time that the consumer, or the first consumer in this case, waits for the product to be finished. And then we want to reduce the number of handoffs. Handoffs are, so whenever in a company we get a ticket in or a request in, uh, we don't always, the requests don't always land on the person that should be taking care of the problem. And so the request starts bouncing between teams. And that's something that we want to avoid, because those handoffs, more often than not, produce a loss of information, a loss of productivity, and basically makes the job harder for everybody. So there are ways that the book tell us how to reduce handoffs is to automatize the work. So basically, have a program running where everything will be everything will land to the person that should be working on it, or reorganizing the teams, basically saying that if a team is getting too many of these tasks and they don't know how to handle it, maybe they need some other people that could help them. And you basically put the people that could help with that task in that team to make the handoffs better.
Okay, so the next principle is to continually identify and elevate our constraints. The purpose of this is to reduce lead times and increase throughput. Um, in order to do this, we need to continually identify our system's constraints and and improve its work capacity. Um, Dr. Dr. Goldratt identified what he called five focusing steps that would help do this. The five focusing steps are to identify the system's constraint, decide how to exploit the system's constraint, subordinate everything else to the above decisions, elevate the system's constraint, and if in the previous steps a constraint has been broken, go back to step one. So basically do a repeat, but did not allow inertia to cause a system constraint. Um, the reason why constraints need to be identified is because, precisely because we need to reduce lead times, provide better delivery times to customers, and eliminate any types of wastes that we'll go into in a bit. Also, in a DevOps environment, we can identify the different types of constraints. These are environment creation, code deployment, test setup and run, and overly tight architecture. All of these constraints can be identified in order to help us um, achieve our purpose. Let's see. Because our goal is to enable small teams of developers to independently develop, test, and deploy value reliably. This is where we want our constraint to be. Let's see.
All right, and here's how we can eliminate hardships and waste in the value stream. So there was a common quote from Shingeo Shingo from the Toyota industry, Toyota company, and he said, "The use of any material or resource beyond what the customer requires and is willing to pay for, that is what waste is defined as." And then this can be found in many different ways. So partially done work, which would be work that's simply not completed. Extra processes, so you're doing too much work than is needed. Extra features, so if you design a feature that the user or the client didn't ask for, that would be a form of waste. Task switching, which we've talked about as multitasking before, that's waste. Waiting, so any delays, which we talked about in the last slide, delays would be waste. Motion, which is also would be classified under transportation, would be considered waste. Um, moving around, if you have to move it from person to person or move it from one work center to another, one facility to another, that all can create waste. Defects, which would be missing information, incorrect work, any sort of issues in the final product would be a defect. Non-standard or manual work, so anything that could be done automated or should be done in a more streamlined fashion would be unnecessary manual work. And heroics, which would be classified as where you're supposed to work as a team, but one person is doing much more than their fair share of the work. And all of these things would create waste. So if we can avoid all those things, then we'll have a better workflow in the DevOps environment.